welcome back to the 12th Man podcast. It is the opening weekend of the Premier League season. Everybody is really excited. If you're a Premier League football fan, kicks off in just under 2 hours' time at Anfield. Last year's champions and current title favourites Liverpool welcome Bournemouth, and that is going to kick off the Premier League season. We've had some really poor opening Premier League openers over the last few seasons, but I think there will be goals in this one tonight. Both teams like the attack and both teams like to score goals. So I think we may be in for a bit of a treat tonight. And of course, it'll be interesting to see Liverpool and a lot of the new players they've signed playing their first league game. I was going to say first competitive game. Remember, they did play in the Community Shield, of course, at the weekend. We're going to look at all the Premier League games this weekend. We're going to look at the transfer window, what's happening, the latest updates. But we'll start, of course, I was in Italy at the weekend. Or during the week, when PSG took on Spurs. It looked for all money. With 5 minutes to go, that Spurs was going to cause an upset, beat PSG, but it wasn't to be. PSG battled back with 2 late goals and did beat Spurs on penalties. They won the European Super Cup. So we're going to start by looking at that. Don't be afraid as well. They put your comments on, and we will put them on screen. If you have any questions for me and Owen, we'll answer them to the best of our ability. Kieran Preston's watching. This is champions again this year. Bring it on. Of course, there's another exciting as they kick off in just under 2 hours' time, as we said. And we'll try and bring you the team news. Team news due out in just over 30 minutes' time at 6:45. So I'm sure Owen will be able to give us the team news when it comes out. Owen, let's start. I got back late last night from Italy, and I have to say it was a really good trip, and I really enjoyed it. Been the 3 different places in Lido Josolo, Venice, and of course where the game was in Udine. And I have to say, for such a small stadium, it was a really nice stadium, and I loved the way you were right close to the pitch. It made it a really nice atmosphere, and PSG fans, to their credit, even with 5 minutes to go, they never stopped. And I still think if they had got beat, they never would have stopped. They made such an atmosphere, and of course the Spurs fans as well made their contribution to it. But look, Owen, of course, disappointment after the game. I'm not sure if anyone watched my fan cam with Chris after, and of course there was a lot of disappointment in it. But I was pretty consistent on this, and so was Chris, that we've seen a lot of positives. Now, a lot of people thought that this would be a very one-sided final. Now, I did point out that PSG were going to come in rusty, but I still think people really thought that they would have a lot more than Spurs, too much for them, and it would be quite one-sided. And it wasn't to be, Owen. I mean, for the first 70 minutes of the game, Spurs had PSG where they wanted them. And if anything, it looked like if there was going to be an hour goal, Spurs were going to get it. The game did kind of change then. I think the subs made a really positive impact. Fabian Ruiz got the game with a scruff of the neck. Is it Lee who come on? Had a really good impact.
Yeah.
Goal. Ramos come on, scored a goal. And that kind of flipped the game for PSG. And Spurs didn't really have them options on the bench. I mean, Is that what made the difference in the end? I mean, Spurs obviously tired as well because they pressed high. It was very much defensive setup, but they did press high in those first 70 minutes. They never really gave PSG space. And this early in the season, maybe it cost them. But I mean, I still see more positives than negatives. I don't know about how you've seen it from a neutral point of view.
No, I agree. I thought Spurs were excellent up until, as you say, the 70th minute. The way I thought Kudos in particular and Sarr was excellent. For a defensive midfielder, he was everywhere. He was attacking. He was more like a box to box. But I do think the lack of squad depth at the minute really showed itself when PSG were able to bring on the likes of Lee and your young lad. I don't know his name, but it was Bra or something. The wee young lad. And Ramos. And then Spurs didn't really have a bench to be quite well. This is going to be a
Sonky come on, but he's only getting back.
He's not fit, and I thought Spurs' substitutions too sort of helped PSG a bit because PSG, as I say, had the better bench. But I do agree with you that there's a lot more positives to take from Spurs from that game because I said it to you on Monday when we were on here or whenever it was. I thought PSG were going to walk over these, but I think we didn't take into account that they're only back a week. They've only been back training a week. So Spurs are going to be the fresher. Yes, PSG are the more talented squad, but Spurs give as good as they got. I thought that.
Yeah, I mean, Chris's dad actually turned around to me and says, I think that's one of the best Spurs performances I've watched in terms of the opponent they were playing, the stage it was on. It didn't really, Spurs weren't startled by PSG. They didn't fear them in any way. And if you look at the players that come off, who really had no impact, the likes of Dewey, Kvara, Kaskelia, they were all very, very quiet. And it was actually
Yeah.
players who maybe don't get as much publicity at PSG, the likes of Lee, the likes of Fabian Ruiz, the likes of Ramos, who kind of turned the game in their favour. As you said, Spurs got quite tired. Maybe that was something to do with being early in the season and they pressed so high. But you think that Thomas Frank, if he could, no one was really blaming Thomas Frank outside the stadium from a Spurs point of view, but do you think he maybe made a mistake taking Pellegrini out and bringing someone like Archie Gray on who lacks a wee bit of experience? I don't think Marcus or Matisse Tell had a great impact, and we'll speak about some of the abuse he's got as well. But he didn't have the same impact as a Kudos, and I thought it was quite strange that Brennan Johnson didn't get on. Maybe that's a bad sign for Johnson. Now, funny enough, Thomas Frank tried to sign him at Brentford, but maybe he's just not up to speed yet. And of course, while Solanke is more favoured at Spurs than Richarlison, Solanke was well off the piss because he hasn't had much of a pre-season. And Richarlison, although he's been criticised at Spurs, had one of his best games in terms of his work rate, his hold-up play, and winning free kicks. And he was missed when he went off. And I think when you're missing Richarlison, your squad's not strong enough.
The thing with Richarlison is he's a quality player, but he just can't stay fit. He's not totally reliable in front of goal. And Spurs have a real lack of creativity now with Madison's out for the season, probably. I'm hearing Kulusevski had a setback. I don't know if you heard that, but I think he's had a setback in his recovery, so he's going to be out for a bit longer. So I can see why Spurs, will talk about it, but I can see why they're looking for an Eze type, number 10 type of player, because they need that. But was it a mistake to take Kalini off? Probably, but he looked tired as well. Because
he picked up a very silly yellow card as well. I think he didn't come back far enough, and he blocked an early free kick.
Oh, you'll get
all night was outstanding. To give away a yellow card like that, maybe that's what made Thomas Frank make the change.
You'll get used to that with Pellegrini. If you remember him from the last time he was in the Premier, he's not shy of picking up a yellow card. So, but I thought I think
sorry,
I was going to say too a bit on Basuma too. I think Spurs need to shift him because he just seems like a bad apple around the camp.
Yeah, and to be fair, he was unavailable for the first game of last season as well. I know this wasn't the Premier League, but it was still a competitive game. So he's missed the first two competitive games of the last two seasons due to disciplinary reasons. Of course, last year it was the laughing gas incident, and there's been other incidents at Brighton, which I'm not going to go into, but I'm sure you'll see some of the stuff that was happening there. But I mean, the one takeaway I got from it, Owen, was this looked like a Thomas Frank team from minute one right up until, of course, they tired and the players that come on didn't have the impact that Thomas Frank would have wanted. But they were very well organised. They were very dangerous from set pieces, and they were very, very good in the transition, as you said to me off camera. So was that a positive that early on against a top team, albeit against a team that is short in match practice in PSG, but that they were able to, they've got up to speed with Thomas Frank very, very quickly?
Oh, you know what you're going to get from a Thomas Frank team. Like we've seen his teams over the years at Brentford. They'll do the long throws. They'll be horrible. They play against in set pieces. They'll try and be physical. I thought that was a real takeaway for me in the first half, especially. Spurs were a lot more physical than PSG, and they couldn't really deal with it. I thought PSG really must, just as Spurs must Madison. I think PSG really must Neves too, because he's their conductor in the midfield. Really, he's the one that controls the game. But I think this was a Spurs that will get. It'll take a while getting used to, because seeing Spurs over the last 2 years, it's been gung ho attack. It's been wide open at the back. So it'll be interesting to see how it translates in the Premier League football with Thomas Frank, because I think the real test will come when he has to play every 2 days or every 3 days, because he's never done that before.
Did you find it quite interesting? Now, I know Thomas Frank teams have done this in the past, but obviously being at a club where Spurs are traditionally a footballing team, that any kind of throw-in they got, even if it was on the other side of the pitch, Danzo made his way across. They launch a rocket of a long throw into the box. I mean, it doesn't matter who you are. No team's going to want to defend. I mean, that is quite a powerful long throw he's got, and I can't believe that that wasn't recognised last year, because Danzo played quite a lot because of injuries. That even in them tight games when Spurs was up against it and they weren't getting results, that look how dangerous they were. And again, it was 2 set piece goals that Spurs scored from. And Danzo came very close to getting a third that probably would have killed the game. And interesting, Jed Spence's comments. He says he didn't want to give too much away. He was asked yesterday about the new style of play. And he says, I don't want to give too much away, but Thomas has done a lot of work with us on the pitch about keeping clean sheets and being very, very tactically aware and using set pieces to their advantage. We always hear managers talking about marginal gains. Is that something you think Thomas Frank really analyses? I mean, apparently Thomas Frank over the summer watched every game that Spurs was in last year. They pick up strengths, weaknesses. He is that type of manager where he doesn't leave a stone unturned.
Aye, and as we said, Spurs are traditionally a footballing team, but a manager comes in and implements his own style, and Thomas Frank always had that style. When I always remember going away to Brentford, I always hated it because you knew you were going to be in for a dogfight, you were going to be in for a tough day. So maybe that's what he wants from Spurs. But I think the biggest thing for Spurs now, or for Thomas Frank, sorry, is they get the back and above him, because he's very short on numbers at the minute. And if Spurs do get an injury, the like of a Van de Ven who's prone to injuries, or Romero, the drop off in their centre halves. Danzo's a decent player, but compared to them two, it's going to be difficult. So they need depth.
I do think Danzo's going to be playing a more important role than what maybe some people think. I can see Thomas Frank going with a back three in a lot of games, maybe away from home especially. Yeah. I don't expect him to do that on Saturday against Burnley at home, but we'll see. A lot of links, and we'll speak more about the transfer window now in a minute. But I mean, Savinho and Eze are heavily linked, and they look more likely at the minute than unlikely. Does that extra creativity and extra bit of flair make Spurs a dangerous team? A lot of Spurs fans came out the other night, and I know it was only one game, but they were kind of a little bit surprised. They felt a bit like you one, that they were going to get embarrassed by PSG. But I think they've seen the physicality of the likes of Danzo coming in beside Romero and Van de Ven. Porro seems to have done a lot of work defensively. He was very, very good. Best I've seen him defensively. Spence is obviously a good player that we know, and Udogie is to come back. It'll be interesting to see if Frank has done the same work with Udogie that he's done with Porro. Because even tactically, Porro looked a lot more assured than he has under Ange Postecoglou. And that physicality in midfield of, Palhinha coming there, he's a big man, Bentancur and Sarr. And then if you've got the flair of Kudus, Eze, Savinho, and a striker, will that give teams a bit of a, we have to keep an eye on Spurs. They could be a lot better than what we maybe anticipated.
I definitely think with Eze, I said this to you off camera, I'm not convinced that on Savinho. Just by watching him last season, apparently he had the most assists for Man City in all competitions for them. But for me, he's another winger who looks good on the eye, but his end product is not great. So for me, it would be a decent signing, but there's a reason why Pep Guardiola doesn't want them. So I wouldn't be off my seat by him, but you never know. A different environment where he could thrive as the sort of main man, so to speak, could be better. But Eze is the one. Like, if you get him, that's a top signing. I don't know how you feel about Savinho, but for me, Eze is the one that I would be more excited about if I was a Spurs man.
I'll come on to it in a minute. I just wanted to throw it in there. They round off that conversation. We will speak about those three players in more detail when we come to Spurs in the transfer window section, and that's where we are now. Of course, there is just 17 days left in the transfer window. The Premier League kicks off this weekend, and you hear a lot of the managers that spoke today, and most of them have all said we want to do more business. There is a lot of teams going into this weekend. It feels underprepared, and there's obviously a lot of stories in the background. Players are being left out due to transfer reasons. And one of those players is Alexander Isak. This is a saga that's been running now for quite some time. Liverpool, of course, made a bid of around 115 to 120 million. We're not sure on the actual number, but we know around 100 million of it was up front. with 15 to 20 million in add-ons that were easily achievable. It was his being most respectable journalists. Eddie Howe says today that he will not be involved this weekend, of course, and
next week.
there is a good chance now that he will be fined due to being unavailable for a competitive game. Oh, and where does this end? Because Isak hasn't made it public, but it's been well reported via journalists through probably Isak's camp that he will not play for Newcastle again, even if the window closes and he's still a Newcastle player. Well, we'll see if that is the case. Maybe this is another way to try and get out of the club. But a lot of the Newcastle side now, sources are saying that it's becoming more difficult as days go on because Newcastle are running out of time to get replacements. And the longer this goes on, the more likely Newcastle are to keep him. Eddie Howe says today, I still fully expect him to be a Newcastle player come the window closing at 7 p.m. on September the 1st. I mean, are you losing any confidence that this deal may not happen now?
To be honest, I just want it done one way or the other. It's just becoming a bit of a joke. But no, I'm not losing confidence. Honestly, I think he'll be a Liverpool player by the end of the window because I seen a report yesterday from a very reliable Newcastle journalist that even if Newcastle get one striker, that'll be enough for them just to get rid of him because I seen that they're looking to play Anthony Gordon as a second striker as well, so that could be an option. I generally like Isak has played this horribly as well, but there must be something going on in the background that we're not being told because from what I've seen and read, he told Newcastle that he had no intention of playing for them again in January. Like he said this was going to be his last season in January. So there must be a reason why players aren't joining Newcastle. Yes, you could say Ekatike and Sesko got better options, but surely there's someone out there who wants to join Newcastle in terms of a striker.
Well, Eddie Howe I did see that report as you referenced that there is an option of one striker coming in and possibly trying to get to January. But I mean, who's going to be available in January? This is the issue. I mean, Eddie Howe says today, regardless of what happens with Isak, we need a striker because Callum Wilson's left the club. So, I mean, Newcastle will be running a massive risk if they were to just bring in Wissa, who we'll speak about in a minute. If it is Wissa, let Isak go, and then maybe rely on Gordon, playing there as well because Gordon's their best left winger. So, I mean, I know they've brought in another player, which we'll speak about, but it just seems very risky. I mean, and I think, maybe Liverpool are being respectful to Newcastle, trying to let them get their business done. But do you think if we're sitting here next week and this is still rumbling, do you think Liverpool are going to have to come in again with a new offer and try to push this on a bit? Because the fee that they offered, I wouldn't say it's a derisory offer because it was a massive fee. But I think in this market, when you're seeing that players are being linked with 70 to 80 million pound moves, you would imagine that they're going to be looking for at least 130 plus for him.
Well, Slot, I don't know if you've seen it, but Slot came out yesterday too in his press conference and said, we want another attacker. So regardless if it's Isak, we are going to get another attacker. But I think I'm 50-50 now. I generally do you
think Liverpool will have a deadline in their head of when they move on to another target if they feel that this isn't going to be done?
I wouldn't be surprised if we hear something by the end of this weekend because don't forget Liverpool and Newcastle are playing each other next week. So
it doesn't suit anyone. It doesn't suit Newcastle. They have this rumbling on, but
no. Or Liverpool
because they're worried about a lack of options now because a lot of strikers have moved. And
I don't think
played up front, but he's been more converted into a striker, hasn't he, than he has a real out and out number 9.
True. But for me, they will get Wissa. I think he's another one. He's refusing to play for Brentford. So it happens. It happens. But Newcastle fans aren't complaining about that. See, that's what I said to you yesterday. Football fans are hypocrites. I'm a hypocrite. Like if this was a Liverpool player, I'd be screaming from the rooftops. But it's just the nature. Like, but for him, they say he's not going to play. We've seen it with Suarez. Do you remember when he wanted to join Arsenal? He said, "Oh, I'm not going to play for Liverpool," and then he went and had that amazing season and then got his move to Barcelona. So it could be one of them situations again. But Isak's doing all he can. He sold his house. He put his house up for sale. He's refusing to play. But for me, I'm 50-50, but I'm leaning towards he'll be a Liverpool player by the end of the window.
Yeah. Aside from the Isak story, Liverpool spent that had over 300 million today when they confirmed the signing of Leone. Is it centre half, young
I
centre half, around
can't
about
say
30 million euros, which is about 26 million pounds. A
can't
very
say I've
highly
seen.
rated defender from Parma. I don't know much about him, and you probably have done a bit more homework than me.
Well, from what as you say, from what I hear, and I haven't watched much of him, but from what I hear, he's very highly rated. He's seen as the next sort of big thing coming out of Italy centre back wise. He's been likened to no Bastoni that plays for Inter Milan.
Yeah.
That sort of stature. He's a big boy too. He's 6'5", so and Liverpool, that was a problem position for us. Now we'll speak about it too. We're still in talks with Crystal Palace for Mark Gahey as well.
Yeah,
So
surprised Liverpool haven't offered 100 million for Harvey Elliott for Isak. So both clubs, Newcastle short and midfield, and he won't start this year for Liverpool. Fair comment. Owen, sorry, I was what you say there, and you kind of half hinted it. So from the Liverpool side of things, and what you've read and seen, this is a separate deal to Gahey. They're still
yeah,
going to be looking at bringing in Gahey as well.
it seems like it because okay, we need to replace Van Dijk at some point. Like what age? He's 35 now, is he?
Yeah, he's around that.
He only well he could play for another 2-3 years, but we need a succession plan. And Kanate's future isn't 100% certain because he's entering in the final year of his contract. So if Liverpool end this, and Joe Gomez is always injured, so if Liverpool end this window way centre back wise, way Kanate, Gehi, Leone, Van Dijk, and even Gomez as a backup, I'd be more than happy.
Yeah. Danny
Just
did
on
mention
Danny,
there.
just on Danny's point, I don't think I don't. It's well, or maybe we have offered a player, but it's well, or Newcastle want Harvey Elliott
Well, I was just
because
going to
what is
say that it looks like they're very close to signing Jacob Ramsey. So he plays in a similar role, can play
yeah,
out wide or as a number 10. Do you
yeah.
think that rules any chance of Elliott going there? And again, they got Ramsey for about 40 million. Liverpool want 50 million at least for Harvey Elliott. So it would be a big shock if Elliott was included in any deal there now, surely.
Well, if Vola's getting 40 for Ramsey, Liverpool should be getting 50 plus for Elliott because Elliott's a better player in my opinion. But no, I think that's a good deal for Newcastle too, Ramsey. But I seen a thing when they signed him yesterday. Someone wrote, "Can he play up top?" Someone wrote, "Can he play striker?"
I think
Just
look,
but
Villa have been very clever about this. They've left it the too long, so he can't play against them this weekend as well.
that's right. But
I wonder will Man
apparently,
City do. I wonder will Man City do something somewhere with Savinho because Spurs play Man City next weekend. Will they wait until
yeah,
after that? There's going to be a lot of mind games like that between now and then. And again, a bit like the Isak thing. I don't think Newcastle want Isak playing against them next week. So
I think
maybe that'll
I
drag
think
things out.
I think regardless of the outcome,
Yeah, he's not big.
I don't think he'll be playing until after the international break, regardless. But I do think it's going to be. I'm not going to move on ahead the next week, but next week for an early season game with everything going on, that's going to be a fiery game.
Yeah, and then Monday night games tend to be under the lights as well.
Mhm.
Owen, attacking player looks very much close to being done as well for Newcastle as Wissa, a deal of around 35 million, close to being agreed, it would seem. Um, what do you think of this? I mean, Vissa's done something, as you say, very similar to what Isak has done. He's refused to play, not really playing ball, once out, desperate for this move. Looks like it's going to happen because Brentford have agreed a deal for Otara from Bournemouth for around
Mhm.
42.5 million. Again, a
Yeah.
lot of money for a player that wasn't the first choice player at Bournemouth.
And
Very
also,
talented,
Bournemouth,
but
Bournemouth have also agreed a deal for 25 million for Ben Doak. So I don't know how we got 25 million for him, but I'll take
yeah.
it.
You're seeing this domino effect now of a lot of money being passed around. But again, that kind of shows you the market 42.5 million for a player who wasn't first choice at Bournemouth last year, despite
Yeah.
having a lot of talent. But Vassa, Owen, do you think this is a good deal for Newcastle?
I mean,
I mean,
it
the issue being
depends.
he's 29, so he's not going to be around forever.
He's,
And
he's
35
absolutely.
million. again, it's a lot of money for him.
It depends on the circumstances. Like if Isak leaves and he's their main number nine, it wouldn't fill me with confidence. But if Isak stays and he's just like a backup or another option, it's a good deal. So for this one, for me, it all depends on what happens with Isak. If they get the, I wouldn't be surprised if they get this done. Then Liverpool ring in bill 130, just to test the waters. I think
Yeah.
Liverpool will bid once more for Isak, and the fact gets rejected, we'll move on.
And Spurs are targeting a triple deal. We did mention Eze and Savinho in the last half an hour. It now seems they're about to approach Bayer Leverkusen. They activate Hincapié's release clause at around
Yeah.
60 million euros. A left-sided centre half. Again, because you did point out if Van de Ven was injured, well, and I think as well it points to maybe Spurs playing with a back three because that would have them Romero, Van de Ven, um, Danzo, Dragusin will be back from injury in a couple of months' time, I believe. Ben Davis is still there. Again, I know that he is a left-sided centre back, and if Hincapié comes in, it would point the Spurs maybe moving to a back three in certain games. Hincapié's been linked with Spurs for a couple of years now. Liverpool have also been linked with him. He's seen as a very highly rated player. I think he's Colombian.
He's
And he's a big,
he's
strong,
from
powerful centre back, and he's a threat from set pieces as well.
he's from Ecuador actually.
Sorry,
He's
Ecuador.
Ecuadorian. But just on that, Leverkusen are having a stinker of a window too, aren't they?
Yeah, well, there's a release clause there for around £50 million sterling,
Good,
and
good
it
signing
looks
though.
like Spurs are going to go there now.
Because as you said, like Liverpool have been like with him for a few years. Spurs have, but he was very good in that title winning season under Alonso, and he can play. He can play as a left back and a centre half. So if he's ever do want to switch it up, and it's also good cover because your doggy is always picks up injured. So as I say, as I spoke about Eze and Hincapié, I think will be excellent signing. Savinho, I'm not so sure what.
Yeah, as you say, this should be Savinho not scoring enough goals, but he is only 21, and
Yeah.
apparently it's him that wants to move to try and force his way into the Brazil squad for the World Cup next year. Maybe Thomas Frank can work wonders with him, like he did with the likes of Mbeumo and Wissa.
Is it a loan or
Remains
is
to
it
be
a
seen.
permanent?
No, it would be, and it's going to be big money. I mean, it would roughly work out at around 180 million for these three players. In addition, they signing Kudos. So again, seems like Spurs is going to go the extra mile this summer. Now, all these three deals have to happen, but I mean, the Spurs fans are getting very excited on X and Twitter, or whatever you call it, tonight because if they can get these three players, I think they'll feel that they can definitely compete. And last one. Ederson looks to be on his way out. They Fenerbahce, and it looks like Man City are targeting Donnarumma, who of course was left out of the PSG squad the other night again.
That's a
A
strange
deal,
situation.
yeah, the deal worth about 30 million euros, so around 26 million. Would seem like good value for money, that wouldn't it?
For me as a goalkeeper, for me it'd be an upgrade. Ederson's great with his feet and he's great with playing out. Donnarumma's not so great with playing out, but as a pure goalkeeper for saving shots and shot stopping, I think Donnarumma would be an upgrade. I don't know what you think, but for me it would be.
Well, the view from France is whilst they had a brilliant Champions League last year, he was pretty poor in the French league. I made a number of mistakes. So I don't know. Maybe there's a lack of consistency there. But I mean, if PSG are willing to let him go for that price, that is a bit of a strange one. But look, let's focus on the Premier League weekend. Team news due out in about 5 minutes time on for the Liverpool and Bournemouth game.
Keep it
So
on.
we'll bring you that when it's out. Liverpool kick off the Premier League season, like we says, against Bournemouth. Two very attacking teams. Bournemouth will probably have to do a lot more defending than they want to do. Owen, how do you see this game? Liverpool have a brilliant record against Bournemouth. Me and Chris spoke about this on Chris's show earlier today when we were doing the predictions for the weekend. I think Liverpool have won 11 of their last 12 games against Bournemouth.
Yeah.
Bournemouth only having a one, and it came in a 1-0 win about 2 or 3 years ago
Yeah,
at the Vitality. So the record at Anfield has been very, very poor. Do you expect that record to continue tonight?
I do. Yeah, and I agree with you. I think there's going to be goals. I think I don't think maybe I could be wrong, but I'm not as worried about this game as I would have been last season, if that makes sense, because of the players that Bournemouth have lost. They still have attacking threat like Semenyo and Evan Nilsson and who's the other
Clivert,
boy that they have? Clivert.
Clivert.
But it's defensively, I think we can get at them. So for
Yeah.
me, I'm
Lost
going.
their two
I'm.
centre backs in Savinho and Huyson, and they've also lost Kerkez at left back.
Uh, oh, it'd be good for him to get his first goal tonight. That would be funny. But it's going to be interesting about our fullbacks because they're very attack minded. So I'm interested to see the dynamic there. But in terms of this game, I'm going to go for a 3-1 Liverpool one.
Yeah, I'm going to go with everything I says on Chris's show today with my predictions, and I predicted the exact same scoring actually. Liverpool 3, Bournemouth 1 is my prediction as well. Moving on to Saturday, Aston Villa take on Newcastle in the lunchtime kickoff on TNT Sports. A really good game as well. I mean, these are two teams that have had some great times over the last couple of years, but they can relate to each other in the transfer market. It's been frustrating windows for both. Of course, Newcastle will sign a player off Aston Villa by the end of the weekend. He won't be playing in this game. As we mentioned there, Jacob Ramsey.
And Villa are still
Villa,
struggling to get players
well,
on too.
that's it. There was a journalist yesterday that says despite selling Ramsey for 40 million, they're unable to use it due to European PSR rules. So Villa might be looking to do some loan deals towards the end of the window. And of course, Newcastle have had knockback after knockback and are struggling to get players in. And that is what's holding up the Isak thing. I mean, both teams would like to be in better positions, but they're not. Who's got the upper hand in this game on Saturday, do you think?
I think it's 50-50, to be honest. I generally think it's 50-50, and that's why I'm going to go for an entertaining game to start off the Saturday festive football. So festivity. Sorry, I'm going to go 2-2.
I'm going to say we Aston Villa just purely on the fact that they're at home, and
Yeah,
I think they're unbeaten in 24 games at home. So they have been pretty strong in their Emery at home, and I think they'll just have enough. So I'm going to go for Villa. They won by 2 goals. They won. 3 games at 3:00, starting at the Amex. Brighton take on Fulham. 2 teams that'll have aspirations of maybe getting a European spot.
Fulham have an awful
This
transfer
season.
window, by the way, as well.
Marco Silva was frustrated. It's not the first time we've heard that.
They've
Brighton,
only signed.
it
They've
looks like
only
they're going to
signed.
hold on to Believer as well.
Seen that. I think Fulham have only signed like a backup keeper.
Yeah. But look, there's still plenty of quality there at Fulham. They haven't lost anyone. And they're a team that are, a good bet for mid-table, but they'll be looking to try and break back into Europe to try and kick on. Because I think Marco Silva's aspirations are already managing Europe. So, I mean, do you think this will be his last season of Fulham if they don't make European football?
I do. I think a team in Europe could come calling for him. When I say Europe, I mean like other leagues as well, because I can't see where he gets a Premier League job at this point unless something goes badly wrong somewhere. But this is a tough one to predict. But just because the same with you,
when they've just missed out last year in Europe by 1 spot, and that was down to the likes of Palace won the FA Cup, or Brighton could have sneaked in, finished 8th position. Do you think Brighton will be looking to break back into Europe as well? Had that really good campaign in the Europa League, where I think they got to the last 16. Do you expect them to improve on last year, or do you think with the likes of United and Spurs looking to strengthen, that it's going to be more difficult this year?
I do think. I think there's going to be. I think like the top 4 is going to be tight, and then I think there's going to be a gap between the rest. If you get me, but Brighton are a team that want to get into Europe. Fulham are a team that want to challenge. But this one's a tough one. I'm going to go 2-1 Brighton.
Yeah, I went for a 1-1 draw. Sunderland take on West Ham. Sunderland have been, throwing money around in this window. Probably the first team in a while coming up, we've seen really go after the market. They've spent
Well,
quite a bit of money.
Ipswich said last year as well.
Who?
Ipswich spent like 100 million last year as well.
Yeah, they weren't all really unproven players, what were they?
No,
This
true,
is a bit
true,
different.
true.
Um,
True.
so
The
I
fact
mean,
that they got
Xhaka's gone.
Xhaka, that's
Yeah, and he's also been named the captain, so they're looking for that experience. I've seen they're bringing on Norney Majeki, is it, from PSG as well, another
yeah.
experienced player. I think he was unknown last year at Leverkusen, and they've signed some more players as well. So I mean,
That's
Sunderland are seen by many as if there's going to be a team that's going to break this narrative of coming up and going down, it's going to be them. How do you see it with Sunderland? Do you think they'll kick on this year? And I mean, do you think is Graham Potter under serious pressure at West Ham if he doesn't get off to a good start?
because West Ham again, they've had a horrible window as well. Have they signed anyone like of? I know they signed a goalkeeper from Leicester, but have they signed anyone?
Kyle Walker Peters on a free transfer.
It's not going to pull up any trees, like is it? They've lost Antonio, which is a big blow. They released
Kudos
him.
as well.
Kudos is gone. They've kept Paqueta, which is big. I think that's big. Well, but I do agree. I think Graham Potter will be under serious pressure if they don't do well this season. But I'm going to go with Sunderland one here. I'm going to go 1-0 Sunderland.
I went for a 2-1 Sunderland one for this game.
2-1.
Final 3 o'clock game sees Spurs take on Burnley. Of course, Spurs will be looking to bounce back from that lit heartbreak against PSG in the Super Cup. Burnley are seen as many by the weakest team in the division this year.
Well, just
Had an
just
unbelievable defensive record.
the Liverpool lineup has just been announced.
Go ahead.
Allison, Van Dijk, Kanate, Kirkes, Wirtz, Sabasai, McAllister, Salah, Gakpo, Ekatike, and Frankpo. So it'll work. It's
So
just
that
the way
was
it's.
the Allison at the back, or Allison in goal, Frank Pond at right back, Van Dijk and Kanate centre back, Kyrgyz left back, midfield three of McAllister, Szoboszlai and Wirtz,
Yep.
and then Salah on the right, Gakpo on the left, and Ekatike up front. And have you got the Bournemouth team there?
I haven't, but I'll try and sort it while we talk through this game. Spurs and Burnley. I think Spurs.
Yeah.
I think Burnley are going to
do
be.
you see what many are saying about Burnley being the weakest of the 20? Do you think they're going to struggle? I mean, they had a brilliant defensive record last year in the Championship, but many are pointing out that the Premier League's a massive difference in quality, and it's going to be back to the wall every week.
And Scott Parker hasn't really pulled up any trees anytime he's been in the Prem. And Spurs going by. I'm trying to get the Bournemouth line over. Spurs going by their performance on Wednesday night. I think Burnley could be in with a tough night. I'm going to go tough afternoon. Sorry, I'm going to go 3-0 Spurs.
Yeah, I'm going to go the same 3-0 Spurs. Before we come on to Wolves and Man City, we'll hear that Bournemouth lineup at Anfield.
Trying to find it here. I'm on their page, but it hasn't been posted from what I can see.
I haven't put it right yet. Well, we'll get that lineup as soon as it's out. Wolves take on Man City in the 5:30 game live on Sky. Wolves, it's no real different to any other summer. They've sold their two best players in Al Nouri and Cunha to the two Manchester clubs. Of course, Al Nouri will be returning for his first competitive, played in the Club World Cup, I suppose, but his first competitive English domestic game at his old ground. Man City have done some business earlier on in the window with the likes of Reinders, Al Nouri, and Cherokee, and they've also brought on James Trafford as well.
Yeah, I have the Bournemouth team here now.
Go ahead.
Petrovic, Truffert, Sensei, Brooks, Scott, Evan Nelson, Che Adams, Adam Smith, Marcus Tavernier, Diakite, and Semenyo. So
a bit of a change Bournemouth lineup to what we seen last year. That game kicks off in about 70 minutes time at 8 o'clock, and that is live on Sky.
It gets real now. Hey?
That's it. Do you expect Man City to be busier now in the next few weeks? You know, they brought players in early in the window, but do you think they'll, if Savinho goes, we're hearing they're going to target Rodrigo. So Do you think that'll be a massive upgrade for Man City if they were to do something like that?
Oh, if you're going from Savinho to Rodrigo, I think it's a big upgrade. Like the man's won what 5 Champions Leagues, 4. I know he hasn't, but
Would that make you
Rodrigo.
worry about Man City more if they were to do that kind of thing? Savinho goes and Rodrigo comes on. Do you see them as a real threat then?
They're always, as I
Because I
said,
mean,
I think
the front three would be Rodrigo, Haaland, and Marmoush.
it is scary. Like, but then I did say from first to fourth, I don't think there's going to be that much of a point swing. So Um, it would be a great signing for Man City, but I don't think they'll get Rodrigo. I think he wants to stay at Madrid. Because Liverpool were linked with him, and we got the same vibe. Spurs were linked with him, I think, at one point. I think, but if they get Donnarumma, I think, as I say, I think that's a great signing. It'll be interesting to see how he gets on in the Prem. But as you said about Wolves, it's just Groundhog Day, isn't it? Sell their players and struggle to get players on.
Yeah, I
So
actually thought Wolves they go down in 18th position at the expense of Leeds.
I had them to go
Thankfully,
down. I
just
think
putting
I had them to go down last year, didn't I?
Yeah, I just think as I know the manager's done really well there, but I just think those two players will be a big loss and a big source of their goals. I mean, El Nuri's involved in a lot of their goals, and so is Cunha. So
Yeah.
that'll be that. And there's talk of Newcastle possibly going after Strand Larson if they don't get our targets, which would also be a blow. So, and we've seen with Wolves, they have to sell. They've done,
Yeah.
they lost Neves to the Man City, didn't they? So this is going to be not Neves, sorry, Nunes.
Nunes.
So this is going to be a repeat cycle, and I think eventually Wolves will succumb to it. But
Yeah.
thoughts for this game, Owen? Do you think Man City get off to a one start?
I can't see. No, I haven't had Wolves in my bottom three, but I think they could be very close to it. So I'm going to go with 2-0 Man City one. Easy 2-0 one for Man City.
Yeah, I've done the same. 2-0 Man City. Moving on to Sunday, we've got 2 games at 2 o'clock, and of course, the new Sky Sports deal means all games on a Sunday will be live. 215 games live on Sky, and I believe if you include TNT in there, 80% of games are being shown live this year. So more games live than ever before, including all 10 games on the last day of the season. Sky Sports will be shown for the first time ever. So it's looking like pretty much that eventually all games are going to be live.
Hopefully.
Yeah, so loads of football people to watch. But let's look at Chelsea and Palace. I mean, a lot of people are tipping Chelsea as potential title winners. Do you think is that premature one?
Well, I had them second, but I seen BBC's thing yesterday. It was Glenn. Was it someone? Chris Waddle had them first, and no, I don't think they'll get first. I know I had them second, but they will be like their attack. Their attack is frightening. Like Palmer, Esteval, Pedro, Neto, Pedro Neto. um, nah, Pedro and then Neto.
The lap.
Delap, Bino Gittins, Garnacho, Simmons, like,
Yeah,
and
possibly
then
those people on as well.
and
Overloaded.
then they're
I
much.
still think they need a top goalkeeper, and they're still short at the back.
I'm
Of
surprised. I'm
quality.
surprised. I'm really surprised they haven't went down for Donnarumma.
I think they did, but apparently he favours Man City.
Mm. Um, but their defense worries me, as you say, and their goalkeeper. Um, especially,
Excuse me.
especially now, with Colwell being out for the. Well, I don't know if he's out for the whole season, but with an ACL, he'll be out for the majority of it. So they need to get. I'm really surprised they haven't gone on and tried to get Mark Gahey. I'm really surprised at
Again,
that.
I think he has his heart set on Liverpool. Seems like players nowadays have their mind set on one place,
Yeah.
and they don't want to go anywhere else if once they want to go to that
You think?
club.
You
So
think? Do you think Eze plays in this game?
I think Eze and Gahey will play because I don't think they're the type of players that's going to down tools if you don't get their moves. So, and I think Crystal Palace have done brilliantly under Glasner. I think Glasner's going to be an hour manager that teams are going to be looking at.
Yeah.
He's done a fantastic job there, and he's navigated through this difficult. There's a lot of talk about Eze and Gahey, and still getting
Mateta,
result
too.
against Liverpool. There's been a lot of stuff going on about the Europa League Conference League. They've navigated that. I think Palace will have a great opportunity in that Conference League. There may be a silver lining there. They could go further than that and possibly win it than maybe they would have done in the
Yeah.
Europa League. And I've actually got a feeling for them, maybe pulling off the shock result of the weekend. So I'm going to say Palace are going to go to Chelsea and won by 2 goals to 1.
I mean, they always give Chelsea a game. It seems. Didn't they beat them? Did they beat them twice last year? I know they beat them once.
Results against a lot of the big teams under Glasner. I think that's one of the
Yeah.
things that's really impressive.
The only team, I think, the only Big Six team they didn't beat last year might have been Liverpool.
Yeah, they've had some brilliant results under Glasner. I think they've actually beat every top 6 team under Glasner because I think they beat Liverpool the year before.
They did it at Anfield.
So
Even the game, even the home game we played against them, it was Jota scored mine. They should have got a result there. But in terms of this game, I can't say I agree with you. I'm gonna go 2-1 the other way. I'm gonna go 2-1 Chelsea.
Yeah, Nottingham Forest and Brentford fans will be the first beneficiaries of this new Sunday schedule. A second game live on Sky at 2 o'clock. I mean, Forest are really starting to roll now in the transfer market, it seems, but it's not going to be in time for this weekend. Look to be on the verge of agreeing 4 deals, including James McAtee. And there is another one, Amari Hutchinson. I think there's a couple more as well coming on.
They're actually looking for Simicast.
Yeah, and of course they've kept Gibbs White. And rumours have surfaced today that Spurs actually made a second bid, but Forest were refusing to entertain it, and instead Gibbs White apologised to Thomas Frank for how it played out and opted to stay and sign a new deal in the hope that he gets a move next year. And again, credit to Gibbs White. You know, he didn't down tools when there was talk of his future, and I think a lot of clubs will look at that, and he could be one that's targeted by many next year, because I'm sure there's definitely more of a favourable deal for Gibbs White next year if he signed a new deal.
Where does he go next year though? Because Spurs will have Eze.
You could see our players, or maybe Liverpool could look at him. Man City, I don't know.
We don't need it. We have Wirtz, Bosley, and McAllister.
But I'm sure if Gibbs White has another good season, he won't be short of offers. And Brentford, Owen, talking of teams that have had tough summers, Thomas Frank departs, and Mbeumo departs, Vissa's going to depart, their captain, Norgard departs. We know Newcastle have tough. Have Brentford had the worst window of everyone? And the fact that they've lost their manager, their captain, and their best attacking player, and now looks like their second best attacking player.
They've had the worst. They 100% they've had the worst, and that's why I have them in my relegation zone, because
I actually have them as well. I have them in 19th position. I have Wolves in 18th and Burnley in 20th.
I think mine was Leeds 18th, or Leeds 18th, Brentford 19th, and then Burnley 20th. I think that's the way I did it. I think for this game, I think Forest will win comfortably. I'm going to go 3-1 Nottingham Forest.
I've actually gone for a 1-0 Forest one. The headline fixture of the weekend, 4:30 on Sunday, live on Sky, sees 2 old rivals clash in Man United and Arsenal. There's a lot of, suppose this was a massive game, it still is a massive game, but under the Wenger-Ferguson era, you know, these 2 teams were going for titles. United haven't been at that table for a long time. Arsenal have been in recent seasons, but failed to get over the line. But there is a lot of rivalry between the fans, more so than the teams on the title front. But a lot of United fans feeling more confident that this might be a better season for them. We've signed some proven Premier League talent in Mbeumo and Cunha. Sesko's very highly rated. And what you would also say is the fact they're not in Europe, Owen, they can concentrate on just the Premier League. Arsenal have brought on a striker of their own in Gyökeres. They've also brought in players like Norgard and Mosquera to bolster the squad. But again, it looks like they're on the lookout for a left wing player as well, like so many other teams. How do you see this game? I mean, is this a tighter game than maybe it would have been last year in terms of, I know there was the games were quite tight, but on paper, have United got a lot more quality now? They make teams think more?
They do. I think Cunha and Mbeumo and Sesko they'll definitely get more goals out of them. I think the sort of similar to Chelsea, the thing that worries me about United is their midfield and their defense, and their goalkeeper in particular, he is he's not great. But I think in terms of this game, I'm actually going to go for a 1-1 draw.
Yeah, I've gone for a 1-1 draw as well. That's how I see it as well. Very tight tactical game. Um, I mean, do you think Arsenal would take that? You know, a draw away at United in the opening day of the season, would that be a decent start? Or do you think Arsenal, you know, if they're going to win the league, they're going to have to go to Old Trafford and win? No,
I think
you know, but is that the type of games they're going to have to win? They win leagues, or do you think that, you know, a draw isn't a bad result there?
ah well, it all depends on how the rest of the teams do as well, because you know they'll be playing last out of the title contenders. You would think so, but I think Arteta is one of these who thinks go on they won every game as every manager does. So he'd be disappointed, but as you say, a draw wouldn't be the worst. I don't know if you've seen his comments today that Arsenal have got the most points out of anyone over the last couple of seasons, and I went. And what has that got to do with anything? You have won nothing.
I think he's trying to point out they've been the most consistent, but as you say, it's about one, and they failed to do that. Finally, on the Monday Night Football, Leeds take on Everton. Ellen Road is going to be absolutely rocking for this
Yep.
as Leeds make their return to the Premier League. Everton, as pointed out by David Moyes, have also had a difficult summer. They've struggled to get players on. I mean, Moyes last year was quite brave. You know, he's seen a more attacking Everton when he come on. Do you think he'll revert to type? You know, and go back to the defensive doggedness that he's been renowned for of getting results under a lot of defensive pressure.
I mean, but look at he's brought in Jack Grealish, and that's a coup for a club like Everton. No disrespect, they're a big club, but and then who else have they brought in? Drewsbury Hall, who is just an average
Yeah, well, those two
mid-table
players
player.
in particular are more sort of technical than they
Yeah.
are being defensive minded. So
So
maybe David Moyes is going to move away from that. You know, the West Ham fans didn't enjoy, but it did get them success.
yeah, and then they've also brought in that striker, Barry, isn't it? You call him from VRL, and he's very highly rated. I know they've lost Dominic Calvert-Lewin, funnily enough, 2 leads. So that Leeds have got their striker, but I think Ellen Road will be rocking, but
Are you
I just
surprised that Leeds haven't done more business than what they've done up to
ve-
this point?
very much so, because what they've brought in a goalkeeper who I don't know much about. Nanto's still there. They also have they signed a couple of boys from the Bundesliga
Well, there's
who
rumours they're trying to get. Obviously, he was there unknown last year, Solomon, but Spurs are looking for 20 million. Leeds looking to pay around 15. Can see a deal maybe being done somewhere in the middle, but Solomon was obviously a very good player for them last year. But he has struggled to make an impact in the Premier League at
yeah.
Spurs. So I'm wondering, is he just one of those players that suits the Championship?
Well,
But Leeds obviously rate him very highly.
so if they get Hammond again, it doesn't really pull up any trees. Jack
I think
Harrison,
the one thing that might help Leeds is Ellen Road will be full and rocking every week. But if they don't get enough ones at home,
yeah,
maybe they'll be the team that drops and not Wolves, in my opinion.
I think. But for this game, it's hard to call. But I'm gonna just go Everton. I'm gonna go 2-1 Everton.
I'm going the other way. I'm going to go Leeds day one by 2 goals day one. Owen, that is your Premier League weekend. That is your Premier League predictions for week one. I mean, we obviously got to talk through all 10 games there. Is there any games you're excited for there? Obviously, Liverpool tonight, but aside of that, from a neutral point of view, is there any one game there that jumps out that you're really looking forward to watching?
Probably United Arsenal and Chelsea Palace. To be honest, I think those will be good games.
Yeah. And I suppose, some quick fire questions before we finish. Who do you think will be the first manager sacked this season? Now, bearing in mind, you says Maresca last year, so don't be taking Owen's point of view too serious here.
Daniel Fark.
I know, Fark. I'm going to go Keith Andrews.
It's one of them two for me.
If anyone missed our season predictions, that is available on last week's podcast. We done our winners, top 4, top 5, relegated, Champions League, Europa League, Conference League, League Cup, and FA Cup. So we're doing more different ones here now at the month. Player of the season, Owen.
Florian Wirtz.
Seen a few top him. Um, I'm gonna go for Salah. I think if Liverpool are going to win the league, he's going to have to do the business still,
Yeah,
despite all
yeah,
these signings.
yeah.
I'm going to go Salah. Breakout signing or like best signing? You think? I suppose you've given it the. I suppose if you've done Verts, maybe go with somebody else.
I'm going to go non-Liverpool here, and I'm going to go Kudos at Spurs.
Cross.
I think that'll be a good one.
I'm going to go for Mbuemo at Man United. I think he's going to have a good season.
Yeah. Good shot.
Young breakout player, so somebody that we haven't really seen, or maybe just sort of maybe seen towards the back end of last year.
I'm gonna go rogue here. I'm gonna say Rio, whatever you call my second name. Boy plays for us.
This is an interesting one. I'm going to go for the Arsenal player, Diamond. He looks very, very talented.
He's only 15 on me.
15, 16 now, but he looks ready. And there's one more I was looking to do. Yes, your surprise package. That could be a team, a player, a manager. I suppose it all ties in, but
I'm going to go. I think Everton are going to have a decent season.
I'm actually going to go for Crystal Palace because I think they're going to lose possibly Eze and Savinho, but still think they'll have a decent season. So I'm going to go for Crystal Palace. Owen, that takes us up to the end of the podcast. Thanks for coming on. I hope you enjoy the game tonight. Liverpool take on Bournemouth. Kick off in just under an hour's time, roughly about 53 minutes to kick off. Your Premier League season starts. I'm sure Owen's eager to get off and watch some of the build-up here. I'm sure they're going to be talking lots about Liverpool and their credentials this year. If you're new around here, make sure to like the video and subscribe to the YouTube channel for more content. We'll be back next week to look through all the weekend's activity, maybe speak more about the transfer market, and of course look ahead the next weekend's Premier League games, and that includes Man City taking on Spurs and Newcastle taking on Liverpool. So two massive clashes.
To be honest, I'll be glad when the transfer window is over, so we can just talk about the football and nothing else.
Eddie Howe says today in his press conference, even though he's had a summer, he feels like he needs an hour break. So that's usually the press at managers, chairmen, heads of football, directors of football, and owners are under in this transfer. Everybody's ready for the end.
And us fans are just scrolling through online going, what are we doing?
Yeah, I know. Owen, again, thanks very much. Enjoy the game tonight. Enjoy the return of the Premier League, and I'll see you next week.
No bother, lad. Cheers. You too.